Evolution in Pokemon is a fun time. Just a few weeks ago, I made a video about the concept of Pokemon who only evolve once, receiving another evolution and evolving twice. You guys really enjoyed that video, so we're here to do the same thing again with 10 more two-stage Pokemon. We'll be exploring what certain Pokemon who only evolve one time could be like if they evolved a second time. I'll be using fan art to convey these ideas, and the artists will all be credited in the description, so I recommend checking them out. I'm also doing a giveaway for some free copies of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl over on my Spotify, and I would hop on it if you want to win a game, cause they're almost out. Just make sure you go listen to my Pokemon remixes over on Spotify, and for every 5,000 new listeners I get by the time the games come out, I will be giving away one copy. I'm already giving away 2, and there's still time for more, so check that out if you're able to, and I would really appreciate it because it also helps the channel a ton. With that said though, let's get into these evolutions. One two-stage Pokemon I think could definitely have room for a second evolution is Chimecho. Chimecho started out as a standalone Pokemon, then got a pre-evolution in Gen 4, and now I think it's time for it to get an evolution as well. This evolution concept by Mr. Gallo94 on DeviantArt shows exactly why that is the case, because it turns into a bell. Going from a little sleigh bell as Chingling to a set of chimes as Chimecho, and then finally a big bell in a second evolution is such a perfect next step for this family that just works so seamlessly, and that's why I think it should happen, because it's just there for the taking. Chimecho was one of the more iconic Pokemon as well when it was introduced, but has since fallen a little by the wayside, so I think that by introducing an evolution, Game Freak could revitalize the fans' love of this Pokemon, while also establishing love for its new evolution at the same time. This just works really well from so many angles, not to mention this design is great, so I really hope it happens for real someday. Another Pokemon that really seems like it needs another evolution is Noctowl. Just like I said with Swellow in the last video on this topic, these are the only two starting bird Pokemon that don't evolve twice, and frankly, that's just unfair, so it would be really awesome to see Noctowl get an evolution to even that out. This design by Dragara on DeviantArt is a great example of the potential of this idea, and takes Noctowl in a very mystical, almost mage-like direction which fits perfectly with its design and is a great place for this family of Pokemon to go. I would imagine that it would also finally become part Psychic type at this stage as well, which is honestly all the more reason to make an evolution like this, cause Noctowl just feels like a Psychic type, and it's not. So bringing in an evolution like this to make that happen would be really cool. One other Johto Pokemon that desperately needs something to bring it up to par is Sunflora. Its pre-evolution Sunkern is literally one of the all-time weakest Pokemon ever, and, well, Sunflora is literally just a sunflower with a face. These Pokemon desperately need some pizzazz in their lives, and the ironic thing is, these two are perfect for one of the most pizzazzy things that could ever happen to a Pokemon. First of all, this design by ort.homeless on Instagram gives a potential look at what a Sunflora evolution could be, and what it could be as a grass-fire type. This is a type combination that has yet to happen in Pokemon, and it is one of the fan base's most hotly anticipated type combinations. It most likely hasn't happened yet because these types are opposites, and thus hard to put together, but as a sunflower Pokemon, Sunflora has the perfect blueprint for it, and this could perfectly be integrated into an evolution, which would immediately redeem the Sunflora family and make them a million times more cool. This is one I think should seriously happen for real, cause it's just too perfect not to. Yet another Pokemon that comes from Johto is Crobat, but Crobat is already a third stage evolution, so that's not what we're talking about. However, it does relate to Crobat, because we're talking about Woobat and Swoobat. These two are very obviously the Univant equivalent to Zubat and Golbat, and a lot of people over the years have expressed the opinion that since Zubat and Golbat received a second evolution, it's only right that Woobat and Swoobat eventually do as well. That's where this design by Cotterman on DeviantArt comes in, as it shows what a Swoobat evolution could truly look like. I really like this idea in particular because it turns Swoobat into a vampire bat, which is obviously really cool. Cotterman also gave this design two forms, one daylight form and one midnight form, which obviously works perfectly for the concept of a vampire and just helps this Pokemon to be that much cooler. So this is a great example of the potential that an evolution for Swoobat has, and it would be great to see someday. If Johto wasn't a theme of this Pokemon before, it definitely is now. And I promise I didn't plan it that way, but the next Pokemon we have to look at is Ledian. Simply put, Ledian doesn't get enough attention. It is an awesome Pokemon, not to mention, just like Noctowl with the starting birds, Ledian is also one of the only starting bugs that evolves once, so it definitely deserves to get a second evolution, just like its regional counterparts. And this design by Nige and Idu on Instagram shows exactly why. Granted, it was designed as a Mega Evolution, but I think the concept could work for a regular evolution as well, and simply put, if this was real, this would be the best Bug-type Pokemon of all time in my opinion, easy. It looks so unbelievably cool and adds to the subtle superhero theme that Ledian has as well, which makes it even cooler because that's a cool element to Ledian's design that doesn't quite show through all the time. So with the capability of looking like this, Ledian needs to get an evolution. It's as simple as that. One Pokemon, in my opinion, that went from amazing in its first stage to just kinda okay, I guess, in its second stage is Drifloon and Drifblim. I remember being underwhelmed by Drifblim for how awesome Drifloon is when I first played the Sinnoh games, so giving Drifblim an evolution to help it redeem itself would be awesome. Similar to the Chimecho evolution, this line can very seamlessly grow into something bigger, as it starts as a balloon, then grows into a hot air balloon, and could perfectly grow from there into a full-on blimp, like this design by Monolith YK on Reddit illustrates. For as iconic as Drifloon is on its own, I think it's definitely worthy of a second evolution, and since, like I said, in my opinion, Drifblim also has some room to improve, a big third stage blimp evolution, or something similar, for this family would be freaking awesome. So it's another hypothetical evolution that I think would be great all the way around. Next up, I have one of my own creation, and that would be an evolution of Grumpig. For as adorable as Spoink is, and as unique of a Pokemon as the Grumpig family are, they tend to take a back seat to a lot of other Pokemon, and even a lot of other Pokemon of their own type. So in general, they are Pokemon that could use a little more special treatment to help bring them up to par, and I also feel like they do have room for another evolution within their designs, so I think it's a good fit. I created this design of a Mega Grumpig for my Pokemon Cardinal series with the help of Oscar Belmonte, and while it was designed as a Mega, it shows a glimpse of how Grumpig could be expanded upon, and I think if it was, I think this line could be even similar to something like Alakazam in terms of being a strong Psychic type that's really viable. So while I don't necessarily know how likely it is, I certainly hope it happens. Another Hoenn Pokemon that kind of fits into this same category for its own type is Masquerain. Masquerain was easily one of the more unique looking bug types at the time it was introduced, but it's never really broken into the mainstream really in terms of fan perception. And now, with bug types starting to get cooler and more interesting in the most recent generations, it's starting to get buried even more, which is why I think it is due for an upgrade. This design by Nige and Idu on Instagram shows how Masquerain could look if it did get an evolution, and while this is another mega concept, it shows how Masquerain's already unique look can stand out even more in a cool way to really grab people's attention. As a bug type, it's also not going to be the strongest Pokemon ever, obviously, and with it only being a 2-stager, that hurts its case even more, so it could really benefit a ton if it ever got an evolution in the future. Sometimes you don't really need any other reason to give an evolution to a Pokemon other than it looks freaking amazing. That's the cool thing about evolutions. With that said, look at this Furret evolution. Look at it! It was designed by Nige and Idu on Instagram, and is a mega design, but my word, if any kind of evolution of Furret can come out looking like this, it needs to happen. Like, do not tell me that this doesn't need to exist, because I will just slam a door right in your face. This is an amazing design, it is adorable as heck, and Furret is already popular, so it would honestly break the internet, and honestly would sell a crap ton of plushes and other merchandise. So what more reason do you need to make this real than that? Get on it, Game Freak! And last but not least, one more Pokemon that definitely gets the short end of the stick in the evolution department is Spearow and Fearow. These two are literally counterparts to the Pidgey family, but unlike the Pidgey family, they only have a 2-stage line, and frankly, that's just not fair. By comparison, they also didn't do Fearow any favors when they made it look all gangly and sort of creepy looking, so I think it definitely deserves another evolution to at least try and stack up against Pidgeot. This design, done by Nige and Idu on Instagram, shows how that could happen, and while it is another mega concept that we're gonna use as a visual aid for an actual evolution, this shows how a Fearow evolution could actually look cool. I would never ever consider putting Fearow on my team normally, but something like this would maybe make it worth a shot, since I always tended to opt for Spearow over Pidgey anyway, especially as a kid because I thought it looked cooler. So I think Fearow deserves a shot to stack up against its Pidgey family counterparts, and as we can see here with this design, it certainly has potential. And those were 10 more Pokemon that should totally get a second evolution. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe for more content, and once again, be sure to check out the artists of these designs with the link in the description. With that said, I will see you guys very soon with another video, and until then, as always, I love you all, thanks for watching, and I will smell you guys later.